The city looked tired that evening. Tall buildings stood close together, and their lights reflected on the wet road. A light rain fell from the sky, slow and steady. People walked fast, pulling their jackets closer, thinking only about home and rest. A man named Daniel walked alone on the sidewalk. He was in his early 40s, tall, with calm eyes and a steady walk. He wore a plain dark jacket, simple shoes, and no sign that showed who he really was. To most people, he looked like any other man returning from work. Daniel liked to move quietly through the city. Not because he was afraid, but because years of experience had taught him that attention could be dangerous. He had learned to stay alert without looking nervous, confident without being loud. He reached into his pocket and checked his phone. A short message waited for him. Meeting confirmed. Be careful. Daniel read it once, then locked his phone and slipped it back into his pocket. His face stayed calm, but his mind stayed sharp. Tonight mattered more than most nights. As he passed a small grocery store, 2 police cars turned onto the street. Their lights were not flashing, but their speed was sudden. Tires sprayed water across the road as the cars stopped near Daniel. Car doors opened quickly. "Hey you," a voice called out. Daniel stopped walking. He turned slowly, keeping his hands visible. His heart beat once, strong and steady. He had faced moments like this before, many times, in many places. "Yes, officer," Daniel said in a calm voice. 2 officers approached him. Both were young. Their faces were serious, their movements sharp. One of them looked Daniel up and down. "Where are you going?" the officer asked. "Home," Daniel replied. "Where do you live?" "Just a few blocks from here." The officer narrowed his eyes. "You match a description." Daniel had heard those words before. He did not argue. He did not raise his voice. "I understand," Daniel said. "I am cooperating." The second officer moved closer. "Turn around. Hands up." Daniel did exactly as he was told. He raised his hands slowly and turned his back to them. Rain touched his hair and ran down his neck. The street felt very quiet. Suddenly, strong hands grabbed his arms. "Hey," Daniel said calmly. "I am not resisting." His words did not stop what came next. He was pushed forward hard. His bag slipped from his shoulder and hit the ground. His knees struck the wet road. Pain shot through his legs, sharp but controlled. He did not cry out. "Do not move," an officer shouted. A knee pressed against Daniel's back. The pressure was firm and heavy. His face turned to the side, resting against the cold pavement. Water touched his cheek. People nearby stopped walking. A woman under an umbrella stared with wide eyes. A man across the street slowed his steps. Someone lifted a phone and began recording. Daniel stayed still. He focused on his breathing. In through the nose. Out through the mouth. Panic helped no one. "What is happening?" Daniel asked quietly. "You will find out," one officer replied. The officer on his back adjusted his grip. "You are being detained." "For what reason?" Daniel asked. "Matching a description." Daniel closed his eyes for a brief moment. He had trained many officers in his life. He had taught them how to speak, how to act, how to protect. He never thought he would be lying on the ground in front of them like this again. The rain grew heavier. "Please be careful," Daniel said. "My identification is in my jacket." The officer searching him paused. "Just for a second." "What kind of ID?" the officer asked. "Official ID," Daniel answered. The officer did not reply. He reached into Daniel's jacket pocket and pulled out a wallet. It opened. A card slipped free and landed on the officer's hand. The officer stared at it. His face changed. He leaned closer to the card, wiping rain away with his thumb. His breathing slowed. His eyes widened slightly. "Hey," he said to his partner. "Come here." The second officer stepped closer. He bent down and looked at the card. The color drained from his face. Both officers stood still. The rain continued to fall, but the moment felt frozen. The officer slowly removed his knee from Daniel's back. "Sir," the first officer said, his voice suddenly softer. "You can stand up." Daniel did not rush. He pushed himself up carefully, brushing water from his jacket and pants. His movements were slow and controlled. He stood tall, looking at both officers. The badge was clear now. Silver. Heavy. Important. A police chief badge. The officer swallowed. "Sir, we did not know." Daniel looked at them calmly. His face showed no anger, but his eyes carried weight. "That," Daniel said, "is part of the problem." People nearby whispered. "That is a chief badge," someone said. Phones stayed raised. The air felt tense. "I asked calmly," Daniel continued. "I followed instructions. And still, I was forced to the ground." The officers stood stiff. One of them tried to speak. "We received a call," he said. "We thought." Daniel raised his hand slightly, stopping him. "Thought," Daniel repeated. "Without checking. Without listening." He took a deep breath. Rain touched his shoulders, but he did not move away. "How long have you been on duty?" Daniel asked. The officer hesitated. 2 years, sir." "And you?" Daniel asked the other. "Almost 3, sir." Daniel nodded slowly. "Experience matters," he said. "But awareness matters more." The street was silent now. Even the rain seemed quieter. "I am Chief Daniel Morris," he said clearly. "I am responsible for this district." Both officers straightened instantly. "Yes, sir," they said together. Daniel picked up his bag from the ground and held it at his side. "Do you understand why people are watching right now?" Daniel asked. "Yes, sir," one officer replied. "They are watching trust," Daniel said. "And trust breaks easily." A woman stepped closer. "Are you okay?" she asked Daniel softly. Daniel looked at her and nodded. "I am fine. Thank you." He turned back to the officers. "This did not start tonight," Daniel said. "And it will not end tonight." The officers listened in silence. "You will write a full report," Daniel continued. "Every detail. No excuses." "Yes, sir." "And tomorrow morning," Daniel added, "you will meet me at headquarters." The officers nodded again. Daniel took one last look around. He saw faces filled with confusion, concern, and curiosity. He knew many of them had seen scenes like this before, but with very different endings. He spoke loudly enough for everyone to hear. "No one should be treated like this," Daniel said. "Badge or no badge." The crowd stayed quiet. Some lowered their phones. Others nodded slowly. Daniel turned and walked away. Behind him, the officers remained standing in the rain, holding the badge with hands that now felt heavy. Daniel's phone vibrated in his pocket. He did not check it yet. He already knew the message would be important. This night was only the beginning. The rain followed Daniel all the way home. By the time he reached his apartment building, his jacket was heavy with water. He paused at the entrance, took a slow breath, and looked back at the street. The city kept moving, unaware of how close it had come to another broken ending. Inside his apartment, the air was quiet. Daniel placed his bag on the table and removed his jacket. He stood still for a moment, letting the weight of the night settle. His reflection stared back at him from the dark window. Calm on the outside. Thoughtful on the inside. He reached for his phone. The message he expected was there. Video already spreading. Media asking questions. Daniel closed his eyes briefly. He had hoped this moment would come later, under his control, not like this. But hope did not change reality. He typed a short reply. "Call an emergency meeting. First thing in the morning." Daniel sat down and reviewed the details in his mind. Every movement, every word spoken, every second on the ground. He knew this would not be just about him. It never was. Across the city, inside the police station, the two officers from the street sat silently in a small room. Their uniforms were still damp. Neither spoke. The image of the badge stayed sharp in their minds. A senior officer entered the room. "You both know why you are here," he said calmly. "Yes, sir," one officer replied. The senior officer placed a tablet on the table. A paused video filled the screen. Daniel on the ground. The badge revealed. The crowd watching. "This video is everywhere," the senior officer said. "News channels, social media, community groups." The officers lowered their eyes. "You will write full statements," he continued. "No missing details. No excuses." They nodded. Morning came faster than expected. At headquarters, the main meeting room filled quickly. Officers of all ranks took their seats. The room felt heavy. No one joked. No one smiled. Daniel entered quietly. The room stood. "Please sit," Daniel said. He took his place at the front. His voice was calm, but firm. "What happened last night was not just an incident," Daniel began. "It was a failure." No one interrupted. "I was stopped while walking home. I followed instructions. I was respectful. And still, I was forced to the ground." He paused, letting the words sink in. "Some of you may think this is only about misidentification," Daniel continued. "It is not." A screen behind him turned on. The video played silently. Faces in the room tightened. "This is about judgment," Daniel said. "This is about how quickly control replaced conversation." He turned to face the room fully. "Ask yourselves one question," he said. "If I did not carry a badge, how would this have ended?" Silence answered him. Daniel continued. "Trust is the foundation of this department. When trust breaks, authority becomes fear." He looked toward the back of the room. The two officers stood there, stiff and nervous. "I am not here to destroy careers," Daniel said. "I am here to rebuild standards." He called them forward. They stepped ahead slowly. "Tell everyone what you saw," Daniel instructed. One officer swallowed and spoke. "We received a description. We saw him walking. We assumed." Daniel nodded. "And assumptions lead to mistakes." He addressed the room again. "Effective immediately," Daniel said, "we begin a full review of stop procedures." Murmurs spread. "Training will change," he continued. "Accountability will increase." After the meeting, reporters gathered outside the building. Cameras pointed forward. Microphones waited. Daniel stepped outside. A reporter asked, "Chief, are you pressing charges?" Daniel looked directly at the camera. "This is not about punishment," he said. "This is about prevention." Another reporter asked, "Do you believe bias played a role?" Daniel paused before answering. "I believe habits form when they are not challenged," he said. "That is what we are challenging now." The city listened. That afternoon, Daniel visited a community center nearby. Chairs were arranged in a circle. Residents filled the room. Daniel stood among them, not above them. "I am here to listen," he said. One man spoke. "We see this all the time." A woman added, "People like us do not always get back up." Daniel nodded slowly. "I know," he said. He did not defend the department. He did not shift blame. He listened. As night fell, Daniel returned to his office. His desk held reports, messages, and requests for interviews. He picked up one report and read carefully. The officer's statements were honest, nervous, detailed. Daniel leaned back in his chair. Change would not be easy. It never was. But it had to start somewhere. He looked at the badge on his desk. The same badge that stopped the night from going further. It should not take metal to prove humanity, he said quietly. Outside, the city lights glowed. Tomorrow would bring resistance. Questions. Pushback. Daniel was ready. The city woke up slower the next morning. News vans lined the streets near the police headquarters. Cameras pointed at the building. People talked in small groups, sharing opinions and stories. The night before had changed something, and everyone could feel it. Inside his office, Daniel stood near the window. He watched the city below with quiet focus. His phone rested on the desk, filled with messages from leaders, officers, and community members. Some were supportive. Some were angry. Some were afraid of change. Daniel welcomed all of it. He believed change only mattered when it was uncomfortable. A knock came at the door. "Come in," Daniel said. His assistant stepped inside. "The review board is ready, sir." Daniel nodded and followed. The review room was long and bright. Members from internal affairs, training leaders, and legal advisors sat at the table. Files were stacked neatly in front of them. Daniel took his seat. "We begin now," he said calmly. The board reviewed the street incident carefully. They listened to radio calls, read reports, and watched videos from different angles. Every detail mattered. No voices were raised. No one rushed. After hours of review, the room grew quiet. One board member spoke. The officers followed parts of procedure, but failed in judgment and communication. Daniel nodded. That failure carries weight. The board agreed on corrective actions, additional training, temporary reassignment, direct supervision. No shortcuts. Later that day, Daniel met with the two officers privately. They sat stiffly across from him. "I want you to understand something," Daniel said. "This process exists to protect both the public and you." One officer nodded slowly. "We understand, sir. You made mistakes," Daniel continued. "But what matters now is what you learn." The officers listened carefully. "Fear should never lead," Daniel said. "Awareness should." They left the room quieter than before, but more thoughtful. Outside the department, the city reacted in its own way. Community meetings grew larger. People spoke openly. Some shared pain. Some shared hope. Daniel attended many of them. At one meeting, a young boy raised his hand. "Why did they stop you?" he asked. Daniel knelt slightly so they were eye level. "Because they did not take time to see me fully," Daniel replied. The boy nodded slowly. "I want to be a police officer someday," the boy said. Daniel smiled gently. "Then remember to always see people fully." Weeks passed. Training rooms filled with officers relearning how to speak, listen, and decide. Scenarios changed. Emphasis shifted. Listening came before control. Daniel watched from the back of the room. He did not speak often. When he did, his words were simple. Slow down. Ask first. See the person. One evening, Daniel walked the same street where the incident had happened. The rain was gone. The road was dry. People passed by without fear. A woman recognized him. "You are the chief," she said. Daniel nodded. "Thank you," she said softly. "For what?" Daniel asked. "For standing up without standing above us." Daniel continued walking, letting the words stay with him. At headquarters, a new policy was announced. Body cameras reviewed more closely. Community officers assigned permanently to neighborhoods. Open reporting channels. Trust began to rebuild, piece by piece. Months later, a report was released. Data showed fewer force incidents. More positive interactions. Better outcomes. Daniel stood at the podium during the announcement. "This progress belongs to everyone," he said. "Officers and citizens alike." A reporter asked, "Do you still think about that night?" Daniel paused. "Yes," he answered. Because it reminds me why I wear this badge. After the conference, Daniel returned to his office. He placed the badge on his desk again. He looked at it for a long moment. It should open conversations, not end them, he said quietly. As the sun set, the city lights came on again. The city was still imperfect, still learning, but it was moving forward. Daniel turned off the office lights and walked out. Not as a symbol, not as a title, but as a man committed to change.